She cheated on me last night. I didn't know it at the time, but as I sat by my father's hospital bed, watching the monitors beep out the rhythm of his fragile heart, my wife was in someone else's arms. Looking back, the irony is sickening. While I was pacing sterile hallways, praying for more time with my father, Sarah was wrapped in champagne and candlelight, slipping into another man's hotel room. It started with an invitation, one I should have paid more attention to. Sarah's best friend, Emily, was getting married, and the event was set to be nothing short of extravagant. A five-star resort, a weekend of luxury, an open bar pouring liquid courage into old friends with old flames. When the gold-embossed card arrived in the mail, Sarah's eyes lit up with excitement, but I barely glanced at it. Weddings weren't my thing. Then, just days before the event, my father collapsed. A sudden heart scare had him rushed to the hospital, and without question, I canceled my plans. Go without me, I told Sarah, and she did, without hesitation, without argument. In fact, if I think about it now, she almost seemed relieved. I should have noticed the way she avoided my eyes when I kissed her goodbye. I should have questioned the way she packed, slipping silk and lace into her suitcase instead of the usual casual dresses she wore to events like this. But I was too distracted, too consumed by worry for my father. So I let her go. And last night, while I sat awake in a stiff hospital chair, my phone buzzing with messages of support from family and friends, Sarah was with him. With Julian. I don't know much about him yet. Just a name. Just a whisper of a betrayal I can already feel in my bones. But I'll find out everything soon enough. Because today, everything is starting to fall into place. The wedding had been beautiful. That much I know. I wasn't there, but I've seen the pictures. The soft glow of string lights wrapped around towering oak trees, the bride in her ivory lace gown, the guests raising their glasses in celebration. And Sarah, she looked breathtaking. A vision in a deep red dress that clung to her curves like a whispered secret, her hair cascading down her back in effortless waves. She had sent me a picture earlier in the evening, a quick text with a winking emoji. Wish you were here. It's beautiful. But she didn't mean it. Because while I was sitting by my father's bedside, exhausted but hopeful, she was dancing with him. Julian. I hadn't even heard his name before today. But as I pieced things together, I realized he was there, waiting in the shadows of her world long before I ever had a reason to notice. He was a guest, invited through some mutual connection, another suited man sipping champagne under the fairy lights. I imagine how it started, how easy it must have been. The air thick with music and celebration, the drinks flowing, the atmosphere ripe with nostalgia. Maybe he caught her eye across the room, or maybe she caught his. Maybe their fingers brushed during a passing conversation, or maybe it was more direct, more intentional. What I do know is this. One dance led to another. One drink turned into three. And at some point, when the night was at its peak and the rest of the guests were lost in laughter and old stories, she made a choice. She chose him. Maybe she whispered in his ear as they swayed to the music. Maybe she reached for his hand first, her wedding ring flashing under the chandelier lights. A contradiction she didn't care about. I wonder if she hesitated at all. If there was a single second where she thought of me, of our vows, of the man sitting in a cold hospital room who would have given anything for her. Or maybe it was easy. Maybe it felt right to her in that moment, lost in the haze of alcohol and attention, her body humming with something she hadn't felt in a while. Maybe she convinced herself that it didn't mean anything. But it did. Because by the end of the night, when the party had faded and the wedding guests stumbled back to their rooms, Sarah didn't return to hers. She went to his. She thought she got away with it. I wonder if she felt guilty when she slipped out of his hotel room in the early morning light. Did her heart race as she tiptoed down the quiet hallway, her heels in hand, her dress wrinkled in all the wrong places? Did she check over her shoulder, making sure no one saw? Or did she smile to herself, replaying the night in her mind, convinced that what I didn't know couldn't hurt me? She almost succeeded. But the universe has a twisted sense of humor. Somewhere between leaving Julian's room and making it back to hers, she walked straight into the lens of a camera. The wedding photographer, an unsuspecting witness, was up early, capturing the soft, golden glow of dawn over the resort. And in one of those photos, there she was, Sarah, slipping out of a hotel suite that wasn't hers. The image wasn't perfect. A little blurry, the angle not entirely clear. But I'd recognize her anywhere. And the worst part? She had no idea the picture even existed. She had no idea that weeks later, when Emily and her husband sent out a link to their wedding album, a collection of smiling faces, dancing guests, and stolen moments, her secret would be sitting there, buried among the memories, waiting for me to find it. It arrived in my inbox like any other email. Emily and Daniel's wedding album. Relive the magic. I almost didn't open it. My father was finally stable, and after weeks of stress, I was just starting to feel normal again. Sarah had been warm, attentive, almost too attentive. She made me breakfast, left little notes in my work bag, kissed me longer than usual. At first, I thought it was her way of making up for the wedding weekend, for the guilt of leaving me behind. Now, I know better. I clicked the link absent-mindedly, scrolling through pictures of familiar faces, Emily beaming in her wedding gown, the groom's drunken best man speech, the bride and groom's first dance. I smiled to myself, happy for them. And then, I saw it. At first, it didn't even register. Just another candid shot, the sun rising over the Grand Hotel, the sky painted in soft hues of pink and gold. But then my eyes caught the figure in the foreground. A woman, slipping out of a hotel suite, head down, heels dangling from her fingers. The dress, red, silk, unforgettable. The hair long, dark waves I had run my hands through 1,000 times. The posture, the way she carried herself, even in shame, was unmistakable. It was Sarah. My stomach turned to stone. I clicked on the image, zooming in, hoping, praying that I was wrong. But there was no mistaking it. And just visible in the blurred doorway behind her, a man stood watching her leave. Julian. I stared at the screen, my mind unraveling with sickening clarity. The late-night text she had hidden. The way she had avoided my eyes when she came back home. The way she had overcompensated. The extra kisses, the sweet gestures. All of it was a cover. A desperate attempt to erase what she had done. But the evidence was right in front of me. Sarah. Leaving his room. I sat there for what felt like hours, my body frozen, my thoughts spiraling. I could confront her right away, demand an explanation, watch her scramble for excuses, beg for forgiveness. But then a different thought took hold. A dark, satisfying thought. If she had gone to such lengths to hide this from me, maybe it was time I let her believe she had succeeded. For now. I closed the laptop and sat there, staring at nothing. My heart was pounding, but my face was calm. I had the proof. The truth was no longer a shadow lurking in my mind. It was staring at me in high resolution. Sarah had cheated. And now, she was lying to my face every single day, kissing me with the same lips that had whispered to another man. The rage inside me burned hot, but I swallowed it down. Anger could wait. Revenge needed patience. So I did nothing. Not yet. Instead, I went about my evening as if nothing had changed. When Sarah came home from work, I greeted her with a smile, kissed her on the cheek, and asked her how her day was. She leaned into me, her body warm against mine, completely unaware that I knew everything. Busy, she sighed, kicking off her heels. I missed you today. Liar. She curled up next to me on the couch, draping her legs over mine like she always did. I ran my fingers through her hair absent-mindedly, pretending to be relaxed. But my mind was racing. How long would she keep up this act? How many times had she looked me in the eye, knowing what she had done, and told herself it didn't matter? As we ate dinner, she brought up Emily's wedding. Oh my God, Daniel, she laughed, twirling her fork in her pasta. You have to see the wedding pictures. Some of them are so embarrassing. I nearly choked on my drink. She wanted to show me the album. She had no idea her secret was in there, waiting like a landmine. I forced a grin. Yeah? Let's see them. I watched her pull up the link on her phone, scrolling through the images without a care in the world. She giggled at drunk guests, at terrible dance moves, at blurry candids of the bride. And then, she swiped past it. Just fast enough that she didn't see. My pulse roared in my ears. She had no clue. None. And that's when I knew. I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. She thought she got away with it. I was going to let her believe that. And then, when the time was perfect, I would take everything from her in the most unforgettable way possible. I became the perfect husband. Sarah thought she had fooled me, so I played along. I kissed her more, took her out to dinner, held her hand whenever we walked together. I made her feel safe, made her believe she had erased her betrayal, and she melted into it. She had no idea that every loving glance, every soft touch, every whispered "I love you" was a weapon I was sharpening. I needed her comfortable. I needed her to believe that whatever guilt she had buried was gone forever. But behind the mask, I was planning. Step 1. I had to find out everything. Who was Julian? Really? Was he some passing stranger? Or had he been in her life longer than I realized? I started paying attention to the details she let slip. The way her expression flickered when she got texts she didn't want me to see. The extra care she suddenly put into her appearance, even on random days when we had nowhere to go. I went through her phone when she was asleep. She had deleted the messages, of course. But she had forgotten one thing, her call logs. His number wasn't saved under a name, just a blank contact. But it was there. Calls late at night. Calls when I was at work. Calls even before the wedding. So he wasn't just some one-night mistake. That only made this better. Step 2. I needed to control when and how she found out I knew. If I confronted her in anger, she'd cry, beg, promise it was meaningless. And maybe, just maybe, a weaker man would have fallen for it. But I wasn't weak. Sarah was going to feel this the way I had felt it, without warning, without mercy. And it would happen at the moment she least expected. I just needed the right stage. So I planned a romantic getaway. I told her we needed some time alone, just the two of us. Somewhere special. Somewhere unforgettable. She lit up when I suggested it. Because in her mind, she had won. She had buried her secret, and now I was rewarding her. She didn't realize I was about to turn her dream vacation into her worst nightmare. Sarah was glowing. As we packed our bags for the trip, she hummed to herself, twirling around the bedroom with the ease of a woman who believed she was untouchable. She kissed me playfully, asked if I was excited, held me a little tighter than usual. I played my part. Of course, I told her, smiling. Just you and me. No distractions. She beamed. If only she knew. The destination was perfect, an intimate beachside resort, just secluded enough to make her think this was my way of showing her how much I loved her. I made all the arrangements. The ocean view suite. The candlelit dinner. Everything she could have ever wanted. Except what she really wanted was to keep her secret buried. And I was about to dig it up. The flight was smooth, the ride to the resort picturesque. Sarah held my hand the entire time, her fingers laced between mine as she leaned her head on my shoulder. She whispered about how happy she was, how much she needed this trip, how lucky we were. I almost laughed. Instead, I kissed the top of her head and said, "Me too." The first day passed in a blur of perfection. Long walks on the beach, cocktails under the sun, soft music playing in the background of our private dinner by the waves. I watched her soak it all in, watched the way she looked at me like I was the best thing in her world. And for a moment, I let myself wonder, would I ever be able to love her again? The answer came quickly. No. Because this wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice, a deliberate, selfish choice she had made while I was sitting in a hospital, praying my father would live. There was no forgiving that. And tomorrow night, she would finally understand exactly what she had done. The night was set. Sarah thought this was going to be the highlight of our trip, a romantic dinner under the stars, just the two of us. She wore a white dress, flowy and elegant, as if she were the picture of innocence. She looked at me with those soft, adoring eyes, the same ones that had fooled me for years. She had no idea what was coming. I had arranged everything with the resort staff in advance. A private dining area on the terrace. A candlelit table. A special slideshow. She sipped her wine, oblivious, as the waiter refilled our glasses. "This is perfect," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. Perfect. The word almost made me laugh. "I have a surprise for you," I said, my voice smooth. "A little something to celebrate us." Her eyes sparkled. "You're so sweet." I gave the signal. The projector flickered to life, illuminating the screen in front of us. The first images were exactly what she expected, photos of us through the years. Laughing at the beach. Kissing on New Year's Eve. Dancing at a friend's wedding. Memories she thought were proof of our love. She sighed happily, sipping her wine. Then the screen changed. A new image. A blurry but unmistakable photo of her, slipping out of Julian's hotel room at dawn. Her hand froze on her glass. The next picture, a zoomed-in version, clearer, sharper. Sarah, in her red dress, barefoot, heels dangling from her fingers. I watched the color drain from her face. The next slide was worse. A cropped frame of Julian in the doorway, watching her leave. The damning evidence. The moment she walked away from our marriage. Sarah gasped. "Daniel." I held up a hand. "Shoo. There's more." And there was. The next slide was a screenshot of her call log, late-night conversations with Julian, dating back months. Then, a close-up of the name she had saved his number under. No one. The irony. She clapped a hand over her mouth, her entire body trembling. I can explain." I leaned back in my chair, swirling my wine lazily. Can you? Her breathing was ragged, her hands shaking. She reached for me, desperation in her eyes. Daniel, please. I never meant. Stop. My voice was cold. I don't need your excuses. I just wanted to see the look on your face when you realized you lost. Tears welled in her eyes. Lost? I pulled something out of my pocket, a folded document. The paperwork for our divorce. She choked on a sob. Did you really think I didn't know? I said, my voice eerily calm. Did you think you could smile, kiss me, play the perfect wife, and I'd never find out? I love you, she whispered, reaching for me again. I moved my hand away like her touch disgusted me. No, Sarah. You love getting away with it. But not this time. Her lips trembled. Please, don't do this. I'll fix it. I swear. I stood up, tossing a key card onto the table. That's for your room. Stay in it tonight. When we fly back, I expect you to be gone before I get home. She let out a strangled sob. Daniel. I turned my back on her. And then, I walked away. Out of the restaurant. Out of her life. She had made her choice that night at the wedding. Tonight, I made mine. I didn't look back. As I stepped out of the restaurant, the night air felt different, cleaner, sharper, like I had just cut away something rotten. Behind me, I could still hear Sarah's muffled sobs, the quiet gasps of the restaurant staff who had witnessed her humiliation. Let them stare. Let them whisper. She deserved every second of it. I walked down to the beach, letting the waves crash against the shore as I took a deep breath. For months, I had been suffocating under the weight of her lies, but now, I could breathe again. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Sarah. Please, Daniel. Just talk to me. Let's fix this. I didn't respond. Instead, I scrolled to her contact, hovered over her name for a second, then deleted it. She was nothing to me now. I sat down on the sand, staring out at the dark ocean, my mind strangely calm. The plan had gone exactly how I wanted. She hadn't just been exposed, she had been shattered. No more pretending. No more games. But as the waves rolled in, an unexpected thought crept into my mind. What now? For months, my life had revolved around uncovering her betrayal, setting the perfect trap, delivering my revenge. And now that it was done, there was nothing left. No Sarah. No marriage. Just an empty apartment waiting for me back home. I let out a slow breath, feeling the exhaustion settle into my bones. This was only the beginning. There were still loose ends to tie up, the legal separation, the division of assets, the inevitable fallout when friends and family learned the truth. But none of that mattered right now. Right now, I was free. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to figure out what came next. I didn't sleep that night. Back in my room, I lay on the bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of the ocean outside. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, not the Sarah I had loved, but the Sarah from tonight. The one whose perfect little world had crumbled in front of her. And yet, a part of me still waited for the knock on my door. For her to come running in, tear-streaked and desperate, begging for forgiveness, pleading for another chance. But it never came. She knew there was nothing left to save. Instead, my phone kept buzzing. Missed calls. Sarah 5. New message. Daniel, please just talk to me. New message. I swear it didn't mean anything. I was drunk. I wasn't thinking. New message. Please, don't let this be the end. I love you. I stared at the words, my thumb hovering over the screen. Did she really believe that? That it had been nothing? That one mistake could be erased with a few desperate messages? I could still see her that night at the wedding, flushed with excitement, swaying in another man's arms. Had she thought of me then? Had she hesitated even for a second? I didn't answer. Instead, I turned off my phone, threw it onto the nightstand, and closed my eyes. It was done. Sarah had made her choice. And now, she was going to live with it. By the time I woke up, Sarah was gone. Her keycard had disappeared from the restaurant table, her presence wiped from the resort like a bad dream. I didn't need to ask where she went. I already knew. She was probably holed up in her room, replaying last night over and over again, trying to figure out how everything had unraveled so quickly. The thought of her, alone and humiliated, should have brought me satisfaction. But instead, all I felt was nothing. She wasn't my problem anymore. I checked my phone. 12 missed calls. 18 unread messages. I didn't open them. Instead, I walked outside, letting the morning sun hit my face, the warmth sinking into my skin. For the first time in months, I felt like I belonged to myself again. No more questioning. No more searching for lies. No more waking up next to a woman who had already chosen someone else. At breakfast, the resort staff shot me wary glances. News of last night must have traveled fast. I could only imagine what the servers and hotel guests had whispered after I walked out of that restaurant. I didn't care. Let them talk. As I sipped my coffee, my phone buzzed again. This time, a single message from Sarah. I'm coming home today. Please. At least talk to me before you throw everything away. I stared at it for a long time. Then, I typed my response. There's nothing left to throw away. And I hit send. I landed back home before she did. I didn't wait for her at the airport. I didn't text to ask if she got home safely. The moment I stepped off that plane, I wasn't her husband anymore. I was just a man who had finally seen the truth. And I was done playing her fool. By the time Sarah arrived at our apartment, most of her things were already packed. Not neatly, not carefully, but just enough to send a message. I wanted her gone. She hesitated in the doorway, her eyes red, her hair still a mess from the long flight. Daniel, her voice cracked. Please, can we talk? I crossed my arms, standing in the middle of what used to be ours. Talk. I echoed, my voice calm. Now you want to talk? She stepped inside cautiously, like she was afraid I might physically throw her out. Maybe she knew she deserved it. Maybe she was just waiting for me to explode. But I didn't. I had spent too much energy feeling already. Now, all that was left was silence. Her eyes darted to the suitcases. You packed my stuff? I nodded. It's over, Sarah. Tears spilled down her cheeks. No, it's not. We can fix this. We can go to therapy, we can. I laughed, a short, hollow sound. Therapy. I took a step closer, watching her flinch. You didn't need therapy when you were sneaking into his hotel room, did you? She sobbed harder, shaking her head. I was drunk. It didn't mean anything. Stop lying to me. I cut her off, my voice sharper now. I saw the calls. The messages. Julian wasn't some random mistake, was he? She froze. And that was all the answer I needed. I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. You know what hurts the most, Sarah? Not just that you cheated. Not just that you did it while I was in a hospital, praying my father wouldn't die. I met her eyes, holding her in place with the weight of my words. It's that you looked me in the face, every single day since then, and pretended to love me. She broke completely, sinking onto the couch, her face buried in her hands. I do love you, she whispered through her sobs. I swear I do. But love doesn't look like betrayal. Love doesn't look like this. I walked over to the coffee table, picked up the divorce papers I had printed before the trip, and set them in front of her. Her eyes widened. You already? I'm not giving you another chance to lie to me, Sarah, I said quietly. You can sign them now, or I'll file them myself. Either way, I'm done. She looked up at me, searching for something. Anger, heartbreak, hesitation. Anything that would give her hope. But she found nothing. I was already gone. For the longest time, she just sat there, shaking, her fingers gripping the papers like they might disappear. Then, with trembling hands, she picked up the pen. And she signed. The final betrayal. The final goodbye. When she finished, she stood, clutching her bags with one last desperate look. Is there really nothing I can say to change this? I shook my head. You made sure of that the night you chose him. She swallowed hard, then turned toward the door. I didn't watch her leave. I didn't listen for her footsteps in the hallway. And when the door clicked shut behind her, I felt it. The weight lifting, the chains breaking, the life I had been clinging to finally slipping away. I was free, and for the first time in a long time, I was ready to start over. If you like this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.